My video has some problems early morning here.
Your video might just be waking up.
Yeah.
Wait till you've had your
Emmy,
coffee.
ready to start?
I have to start. Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Emmy Bartholomew. I am the Sergeant at Arms for Professionally Speaking. And I am going to start with a Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. So, if I could share my screen, that would be really good.
You should be able to.
Okay. Here we go. Oh. Come on.
I pledge allegiance to the
to
flag
the flag
of the
of
United,
the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and I now turn this over to our president, Abhijit Joshi.
Thank you so much, Emmy. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we have a special meeting. Today we are going to learn how do we do evaluations in our club. In this club, we try to create value for our members by giving them evaluations for nearly 15 minutes. We have 4 different kinds of evaluations. So today we will get a chance, how can we do those evaluations in the precise manner. So thank you for joining us, and we will get through all the guests. We want to get their intros. We want to ask you, how did you heard about us and what brings you to Professionally Speaking? We want to get your feedback, but we'll get that feedback at the end. So let's get the party started. Let me hand over to our Toastmaster for today. It's all you.
Thank you so much, Abhijit. Welcome everyone to Professionally Speaking Club. Today we are having a fabulous session. But before we begin, let me call upon Hazel to do new member induction. Hazel.
Hello, hello. We have the privilege today of inducting 2 new members to Professionally Speaking. So could we please spotlight Arun Shivaramakrishna, I butchered your name, I'm so sorry, and Linda Wu. Hey, welcome. We finally got you in the club.
Oh. Yeah. So happy to be an official member of the club. I have been looking forward to this time for quite a long time. It's really fabulous. Yeah, I think it's a miracle for me to be able to join great speakers like you and be able to learn from all of you. It's really my pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you. Now, I did not see Arun. Is he with us this evening?
He's not with us so far.
All right, so we will proceed with the induction of Linda Wu.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Linda, we are once again just thrilled that you are here. How many Toastmaster clubs are you already a member of?
3.
3?
Yes.
All right. Well, I have misplaced my paper. It was here. Hold on a second. I'm so sorry. There it is. It slipped to the back of my stack. Membership in Toastmasters, you know, is a privilege, and it carries with it many rewards. It also places obligations upon you. And as a group of people brought together, we learn here to do things that we cannot accomplish alone. Our collective obligation is to grow, to improve ourselves, and to share our knowledge and experience with fellow members in a spirit of enjoyment. So while you are working diligently towards your own self-development, evaluating other people's speeches in a spirit of support and sharing, assisting the club in reaching its goals, remaining positive, and keeping a smile on your face. So we ask you, Linda, to dedicate yourself to your personal growth, to share this great gift with fellow members, and to keep this Toastmasters Club, professionally speaking, strong and dynamic. So would you like to repeat after me, Linda?
Yeah, I will.
All right. I, Linda.
I, Linda.
In the presence of my fellow members.
In the presence of my fellow members.
Of Professionally Speaking Advanced Toastmasters Club.
Of a Professionally Speaking Advanced Club.
Make this firm obligation.
Make this firm obligation.
To attend meetings regularly.
To attend meetings regularly.
And prepare fully.
And prepare fully.
For each assignment.
For each assignment.
To apply myself.
To apply myself.
To the projects outlined.
To the project outlines.
In the Toastmasters Education Program.
In the Toastmaster Educational Program.
To participate actively.
To participate actively.
In club activities.
In club activities.
To evaluate others.
To evaluate others.
In a positive, constructive manner.
In a positive, constructive manner.
To build open, friendly relationships.
To build open, positive relationships.
With my fellow members.
With my fellow members.
And to bring other new members into the club.
And bring other new members into the club.
So that they can also gain.
So they can also gain.
The benefits of Toastmasters.
The benefit of a Toastmasters.
But you are not alone, because we all are going to make our own pledge on your behalf. Will you join me, please, Toastmasters of Professionally Speaking? We, the members of the Professionally Speaking Advanced Toastmasters Club, pledge to support you, Linda Wu, in your quest for self-development, to provide you with positive, helpful evaluations, to maintain a friendly, supportive atmosphere, to give you opportunities to help others, and to make your Toastmasters membership a rewarding and fulfilling experience. Thank you. So I know we want to get to our main event. Can you tell me one thing that brings you great joy?
I really like this club. It's so, everyone is so warm, so helpful, and so professional. I was really thrilled, to be able to have this chance to join this club. And wow, I really believe in the miracle happening this year to me. Thank you all.
Well, that is amazing energy you bring to us. Thank you for that gift. I return it back now to our Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Elena. Let's get this party started. Our presenters are Elena Brenner, Karen McNerma, and Sandra Kolb. Their focus is going to be on these categories: vocal, visual, and content. And we're going to walk away with techniques you can use at any club with Toastmasters at all levels to offer essential feedback to any speaker. Following the presentation, Lindy will give a prepared speech. And we have 3 Toastmasters who will give vocal, visual, and content evaluations. Given even more value, the presenters will offer feedback to the evaluators. Now with that, let me call upon, I want to also mention something about our presenters before I give it to the presenters. Our presenters, Elena Brenna, Karen McNerma, and Sandra Kolb, have a combined experience of more than 3 decades delivering evaluations at advanced and basic clubs. All 3 have completed and won evaluation contests up to the district level. And Sandra has been placed first 4 times. Now with that, let me call upon our first presenter, Elena Brenna.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Jamal, and good evening, fellow Toastmasters. You're not showing on the screen yet.
Are we muted?
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
I think we need to.
Are you hearing me? Thank you. Okay. So if a speaker were a singer, then we might think of the visual aspects of the speech as the choreography, the movements and the gestures that sell the song. And we might think of the content of the speech as the lyrics, the words that give the song meaning. I am here tonight to talk you through what you are listening for in the melody, the vocal aspect of a speaker's speech. There are 7 points that you'll see on that pro speaking evaluation form. We're going to try to go through those, use that as a guide. And I want you to focus your attention on the vocal traits that you want to listen for when you're the vocal evaluator. First up, volume. That's kind of obvious. Can you hear the speaker? But there is more to volume than just whether you can hear them. Speakers can vary the volume to give more emphasis. They can get louder. Yep, we know about loud. But remember, a speaker can also get softer to draw the listener in, to try and create some intimacy or confidentiality. So listen for where the speaker is varying the volume and how it supports the speaker's message. The next trait we're listening for is pitch. Now in music, notes go from low to high. We're natural sopranos or natural basses in our speaking voices. But within our range, we can still vary our pitch. And sometimes this is a real tool that speakers use to help sell their message. So listen for how a speaker varies their pitch, and especially if they have dialogue in a speech. Did they vary the pitch between one speaker up high and another speaker maybe a little lower, so that you could tell the difference between the 2 speakers in their story? The next on the list is tone. Now we know about monotone, when a speaker is just speaking all in one pitch, tone, and rate, and it's very boring. But really, when we're talking about this tone, we're talking about the emotion in someone's voice. Now, when you were young, did your parent ever say to you, "Don't take that tone with me, young lady or young man"? And what tone were you taking? Were you whining or sarcastic? So you could practically hear the eye roll. Other tones are gentle, caring, or does somebody have a storytelling? Once upon a time, I'm going to tell you a story. Or does their speech call for a more business-like, just the facts, ma'am, approach? Or even threatening? Well, hopefully not threatening the audience, but maybe a story that calls for a threatening tone. So listen for those kind of tone variation. Praise the presence of them when they're there. And if you can suggest where speakers might vary their tone or step it up, there you go. That's the kind of thing you as an evaluator can support your speaker with. The next item is voice quality. Now, the official Toastmasters International website has a voice quality assessment that you can do. And you may sense I'm a little uncomfortable in this area because I think voice quality is almost a personal preference, what you like to hear in someone's voice, and also it's almost an inherent trait, the quality of your voice. So I am always careful if I'm going to say anything about somebody's nasal quality or the harshness or the lifeless tone. And those are the Toastmasters listed negative qualities. And then they list open and mellow, comfortable, or enthusiastic and engaging as positive traits. But also keep in mind, vocal quality may be affected by the smoky atmosphere that we're enjoying in Washington State right now, the dehydration or illness. So keep those things in mind. The next item is articulation. This is the pronunciation, clear pronunciation of your consonants and your vowels. You want to be able to hear every word that the speaker has spoken. So did you? That's the question you're asking yourself. Was it clear overall, or did it get muddy? Did they drop endings of words and kind of get a little hard to understand? Listen for specific words or phrases that you can point out to the speaker where they needed help. One way I've tried to help speakers, and I think of this for myself, is to speak as though you are speaking to someone who has to read lips. Because when you do that, you are articulating really clearly, and it helps those who can hear as well. Word usage, we're getting towards the end of our traits here. Word usage, you get to play grammarian as well as all these other things. You're listening for vivid word usage and you want to praise those. If someone has used a word incorrectly, you might want to correct them on the meaning of a word or the way they used it. I'm not sure about pronunciation of words always myself, because some of us were trained in American English, some in British English. Some of us are Americans who live with Brits. So I never know, should I park in the garage or the garage? Go figure. So there are some points you can make with word usage for your speaker. Finally, we get to rate the speaker's speed. Was it too fast for easy understanding, or was it so slow that the speaker lost the audience's interest? You can listen for that and point these out to them. You might suggest varying their speed, but only if that supports the message of their speech. So I have covered all these 7 traits fairly quickly. And next up is going to be Karen McNamara with the choreography, the visual. And after that, Sandra Kolb will come up with the lyrics. That is the content of the speech. But before then, if we have time, and I cannot see my timer, but if we have time, I can take any questions that someone might have about what I've said so far. And I'm not going to be able to see if anyone's holding up their hand. That helps.
So far, I'm not seeing any hands raised. If any of, Abhijit, do you want to unmute? And
He's
Yes.
unmuted.
Elena,
Yes.
I have a question for you. So you said there are different kinds of tones, like the business tone, the storytelling tones. So we just look for what kind of tones they are using?
Yes, look for that if it supports their message. And also, I would look for where there's incongruity. That is, if I'm talking about something really sad and I sound happy, then it's not working. So there, you want the tone to match up and support the message. Emmy, I see your hand up.
Yes, I was wondering how you feel about closing your eyes to listen, or whether you actually watch the speaker. How do you handle that?
Emmy, I like to watch the speaker because especially when there's a speaker who might have an accent different from mine, I find then it really helps to see the speaker as well as listen. Now, I know there's different schools of thought on this. Others do close their eyes or turn away and only listen. But I don't find that watching the person actually interferes with my listening. As long as I know that I'm focused on listening.
Okay.
And how are we doing on timing? And if we don't have any other questions, hey, we can go right up. And I would love to now bring up Karen McNamara, who will talk about the visual aspect. Karen.
I'm going to speak to the visual. It's all about mastering your movement. If you follow along on your handout, I'll go through each of those components. So when you evaluate the visual piece, you can use these different categories. First is attire. Is your attire appropriate for the audience and for your message? For example, if you're talking about camping, it's totally appropriate to wear camping gear. If you're talking to a formal event or a formal group of professionals, coming in with holy jeans may not be your best choice. Perhaps you want to bring in humor. Maybe you want to wear a funny hat. That's attire. You move then into physical. Physical begins as soon as you're seen. So physical is as you're coming up to the podium to speak, or if you're virtual, it begins when you're getting ready to speak. You don't want to, in virtual, be looking down and trying to find your camera when you come on. I noticed Abhijit does this very well. If he's going to be the speaker, he's getting ready ahead of time. And he's standing there and he's all set. You want to be calm, you want to be relaxed. As you're walking up, if you're rubbing your hands, you're not sure what you're going to do, people are seeing that, and you lose some of your confidence or your credibility. You might have some habits that you're not aware of, like checking your hair or fixing your jacket or moving around. It's important to be aware of that. You can always videotape yourself and then look back afterward. Are you standing or are you sitting? It makes a difference. When you're standing, you have a little more room to go around and show your gestures. If you are virtual, you have a little bit smaller screen, and often a mistake I see is people's gestures are below the screen. You can't see them. Now, an advantage to virtual is that you can be really close and personal and intimate with your audience, because you can be really close to the screen and you can be seen real easily. So there's pros and cons to both. And the key is you need to be aware of what you're dealing with. We've been playing around with this virtual setting, as many of you know, trying to figure out the combination between the hybrid of being in person and being on the big screen. So the attire and the physical are really important. Also, your background is important. Is your background interfering with what you're doing, or is it complementing what you're doing? If you have a virtual background, sometimes when you move, you disappear. Some people like to use a blurred virtual background. Some people hate that. So I typically don't, because I know there's going to be some that like it and some that don't. So I tend to not use a blurred background. If I use a virtual background, I test it to make sure I don't disappear, and I make sure that it fits my content. If it doesn't augment what I'm talking about, then it's better to use a plain background. Body language and gestures I'm going to talk about together because they really do kind of go together. You need to be in command of your hand, your body, your posture, and your facial gestures. All of those are really important. If you think about a silent film, when you watch a silent film, can you tell what's happening? Do you know what's going on? If you do, it means they're handling those components well. I talked a little bit about habits, so I'm not going to go into those. I'm going to talk about 4 different types of gestures that you can look for when you're evaluating. The first one is descriptive. What I mean by descriptive is when someone wants to make a point, like for example, I say a big ball. Now I've added by using my gesture to show a big ball. I can show that and I can help by using that description. I might want to show love, use a heart. Those are things that can show a description of what you're trying to accomplish. Emblematic is another way, something that links the heart and the emotion together. That's another way that you can use a gesture when you have those two together. So say I want to talk about a distance, like you are way out here and I'm here. What that's showing me is that the love is here and the distance is here, and I'm showing that emotion by my gestures. So I'm using my gestures to my advantage. Another one is representative. Now that's where I want to represent something with my gesture. For example, I might tap, or I might be chopping something, or I might be hitting a baseball. I'm showing an action. I'm showing something by representing it with my gesture. And the final one is when you pantomime. And that is when I want to get my audience involved. So I say, will everybody please raise your hand? Okay, this is audience participation. Will everybody please raise your hand? Okay, I at least got 2 people. There we go, 3, Mary, join us. Okay, so what I have done here is I've shown you by pantomime. I've raised my hand, which is what I want you to do. And the other thing I did was I combined it by doing this. I want you to help come with me, do this with me. And so I'm combining 2 things together. All of these are gestures that you can use to help augment what you're doing. You can do size, shape, location, and you want it to be purposeful, you want it to be natural, and you want it to be focused on your theme. Facial. Facial goes right into what we've been talking about with your gestures. You want your facial motions to match what you're saying. So if I'm happy, I should look happy. If I'm sad, I should look sad. If I'm excited, I want to look excited. So show your emotion to match what you're trying to say. If I'm saying that I'm really excited, but I'm looking sad, there's a disconnect, and that's what you want to avoid. If I'm surprised, I'm angry, you show those emotions and it connects with the audience, and that's the goal. It's not about me, it's about the audience and connecting with the audience through facial. Eye is another one. How is your eye contact? And this is a real challenge in this environment for me personally, because I can't look up out here. If I'm looking here and I'm seeing all of you on the screen, I'm looking to the side. So that's uncomfortable. So I look out to the audience and I can make eye contact with my audience. The best way to do that is to spend a little bit of time on each person. So I can look at each of you for a few seconds, and then I can look to the next person. And by doing that, I make my point. But if I take too long, it can be uncomfortable. The advantage of virtual with eye contact is as long as I'm looking at the camera, it looks like I'm looking directly at you in the virtual world, and it can be very intimate. You have front row seats. So having both virtual and in person, you have to sort of do your little dance and figure it out. Okay, and finally, props. Props is something that can help or hinder. Use your props specifically for a point. If I take this and I use it throughout my time, it's going to be distracting. But if I want to make my point and then put it down, it can be effective. If I have a prop that I'm holding up, you want to hold it up so you make sure that it's seen, and people, so you test it ahead to make sure you can see it in the screen. I've seen people show their prop here, or they've been upside down, or they've been backwards, or there's the mirror option on Zoom that can make a difference as well. So have your props be purposeful and linked into your content. So pulling it all together, you want to also look at culture. You want to make sure that you don't use a gesture or a comment or an action that is confusing across different cultures. So be sure if you have a mixed cultural group that you have that in mind. And remember to be calm, purposeful, relaxed, and have control of your body as you're in front of your audience. And that's the visual. And I'm at red. So thank you very much. Any questions for folks, for me, for others? For me, questions?
There's a question from Linda.
Yes, Linda. Where's Linda?
She's frozen, I believe,
Between emotions. For example, I'm very angry, and then I'm so happy.
So what's the question?
To have a smooth transition between different emotions. For example, I'm really angry, and then I quickly translate to, oh, I'm happy today. So for me, it's a kind of a challenge for me, yeah.
It can definitely, that's a great question. Do you transition quickly or slowly? It can be difficult. And what I say, for me, what works the best is when I relate it to story. If you're telling a story, you're not going to go from one to the other real quickly. You're going to evolve into it based on what you're saying. You're building up your anxiety. Oh my goodness. And then you pause and then you shift. So it brings the person with you using your pause between the gestures and then using the gestures dramatically.
Thank you.
Looks like there's no more questions and I went over time. So I am going to call on Sandra Kolb to speak to the content. Sandra.
Thank you, Karen. Like lyrics of a song, the content of a speech conveys the message. The content is the reason for the speech. We'll explore together the components of the content evaluation and ways to provide helpful feedback on the substance of a speech. Sources of my information are Toastmasters International website and my own experience. The handout is material of Professionally Speaking Toastmasters Club. We'll follow the content handout in order. When you're the content evaluator, ask yourself, is this speech appropriate for this audience at this occasion? If it's a speech for a non-Toastmaster audience, then the speaker needs to write into the speech introduction who their audience is. Then you, as the content evaluator, listen to the speech as if you are part of that audience. Whether for Toastmasters groups or other audiences, always comment on the appropriateness of the speech for that audience. The organization of the speech is the structure of the speech. Is it purposeful and clear? Short, simple sentences add clarity. Stories, facts, examples support the structure of the speech. Comment on the opening, body, and closing of the speech. Look at how the content develops the emotional journey and the message. Look for one consistent message. For the opening of the speech, it needs to relate to the topic of the speech. An engaging opening connects the audience to the content. But if the opening is unrelated, like a joke or a story that has no contact with the topic, then it confuses and it weakens the content to follow. For the body of the speech, look at how the content develops the message. Provide helpful feedback on how the speaker can amplify the message to bring us up and forward more. The closing of the speech is where the purpose lands. It's where the message comes forth. A strong closing engages both the rational and the emotional elements of the content. Transitions are the sentences that connect the opening to the body to the closing of the speech. I like to think of transitions as the glue that holds the speech together. Were the transitions so smooth that you didn't know the topic moved on? Or were they abrupt and disengaged you? Share what worked well or give helpful suggestions to the speaker. The logical flow of the speech reflects a logical outline. If the speech is structured logically, it helps achieve the speech objectives. The logical flow helps the audience follow the speech. The audience should not have to look too hard to find the message. Citing of sources may not always apply, but if it does, listen for the citing of sources in material and ideas. Did the speaker cite authors and titles? Did they cite facts or data or other information? Content needs to indicate credit where credit is due. Was there enough supporting material for the audience, for the topic, considering the length of time of the speech? If there wasn't enough supporting material in your opinion, then you might suggest a handout or perhaps a list of additional resources. Additional comments I like to share with the speaker are about the speech title, the introduction, and the audience takeaway. A speech title needs to be fresh, pithy, and memorable. It should instill interest in the topic and draw the audience in. The speech introduction, in my opinion, is the beginning of the speech. Listen carefully to it. Did the introduction pique your interest? If not, then help the speaker by providing some suggestions. The audience takeaway is always what the audience hears last. Is the message concise, clear, and consistent all the way through the speech? A memorable, repeatable message, a phrase, helps the message live a long life. Will the speaker remember it tomorrow or years from now? In closing, I always like to thank the speaker for their time and their effort. Most importantly, their message was their gift. Do you have questions? Yes, Walker.
Can folks hear me? Yeah, I was wondering, when you spoke about transitions, you mentioned that some transitions can be so smooth that the audience doesn't know that they're transitions. Were you suggesting that that's a bad thing, that you want the transition to be noticeable?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question, Walker. That's a good thing, in my opinion.
Smoothly.
Now, yeah, smoothly.
Okay.
Because you want the audience to stay engaged in the content. You don't want to bolt them out of it by becoming disengaged by such an abrupt change that they're wondering, well, what happened? You know, where's the connection? My preference is a very smooth transition. However, evaluations, as we know, are always the opinion of the evaluator. There will always be someone out there who may have a different opinion, but that's my personal preference. I want the audience to stick with the content as a speaker. Are there other questions? Judy.
Yes. I don't know that you can answer this question. It's sort of my sticking point. What do you do if you hear a speech and you know that it should be organized differently, but you can't figure out how it should be organized differently? What can you do then? Because you want to give value to the speaker.
Exactly, Judy. First of all, you give value by being honest about how you received that speech and that message. And if it didn't come through clearly as well as it should for you, then you need to share that. But if you don't know what examples or direction to give them, that's okay. You say, I don't know. And at that point, I have a very good friend who suggests, open it up to the audience. Okay. Can anyone help me? Okay. How do you think the speaker could organize the speech better? Does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you so very much. And I'd like to transition over to our Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. We just learned how to quadruple the value for each speaker. Now let's put to test what we just learned. We have a speaker, Lindy McLean, who is going to give us a speech today, and we get to evaluate her speech. Our speaker, Lindy McLean, is working from her engaging humor path. Lindy is a contestant in the District 101 Humorous Speech Contest Finals. Your feedback will contribute to helping her make it the best she can make it. With her speech titled, Are You Listening? Please welcome Lindy McLean.
Are you listening? Have you ever asked that question? No, me either. After all, I'm married to Mr. Right. I always thought I was a great listener, but recently, my husband has been awfully quiet. When was the last time he spoke to me? It was my birthday, I remember, because he leaned over and romantically whispered, Lindy, please pass the mashed potatoes. Well, we've been married for 20 years and conversation can wane, but 5 months without talking to me, a great listener? So I asked him, honey, what? Who? Me? Yes. Why aren't you talking to me? I don't like to interrupt. Friend, it is the greatest mystery of the universe. Why is it so difficult to communicate with the opposite gender? I have 3 brothers and a father. I've been practicing this for over half a century. How is it that I'm still so bad at communicating with men? After all, I do just exactly what I was taught to do. I communicate just like my mother. Are you married? In case you aren't, I'm going to let you in on a secret, but don't tell or no one will ever get married again. There is this mysterious thing that happens between walking down the aisle and leaving the ceremony. It doesn't matter if it happens in a church, in the town hall, or in an exotic location like your backyard. No, it really doesn't matter. You see, you walk in as a lovely, adoring, fun to be with bride, and you walk out as a combination of his mother and yours. Suddenly, you're this controlling, know-it-all creature. It applies to him too. He walks in as this romantic, thoughtful guy who brings you flowers and takes you dancing. And he walks out, you guessed it, combination of your father and his. He has 2 new body parts, the remote control and the couch. Married or not, what do you think women's biggest complaint is about their male partners? He doesn't listen. I wish he would listen. What's the truth about this? Well, of course men listen. In fact, they have their very own style of listening. It's called action-focused listening. Men listen with the sole purpose of bringing a solution to any problem you bring them. The problem is, we women, when we're upset especially, the last thing we want is a solution. No, we want sympathy. We don't want advice. Recently, I got kind of bent out of shape about the fact that summer is coming to an end and winter is coming. And my husband noticed, sweetheart, what are you so upset about? It's all this darkness. It's interfering with my life. He snorted. He actually snorted. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, this is your life. Oh, I know it doesn't make any sense. I don't care. I just want you to say, my poor sweetheart, I'm so sorry. What can I do to make it better? Men, if you want to be her hero, memorize those words. There is another side, though, another part of this not listening story. When I ask a man a question, like, where would you like to go on vacation? I don't always necessarily stop and listen for the answer. You see, if he doesn't start talking right away, I ask it a different way. Where have you enjoyed going in the past? And if he's still not talking, I start with the multiple choice answers. What do you think of Bavaria or Fiji or the North Pole? If he's still not talking, I answer it myself. Fiji sounds good, yes? So that happens that way, but really, in fact, it's more complicated than that because he knows exactly what he's doing. You see, according to Alison Armstrong at understandingmen.com, men have this unique ability for singular focus. They are like a deep well of rich resources of experience, wisdom, knowledge. You ask a man a question, he lets down the bucket to his well. It's a deep well. He gets just the right thing, retrieves it, and offers an amazing answer. But the problem is, by this time, I have asked 3 more questions. I've answered them myself. I'm talking about something else. And so he doesn't say anything at all. Now, as a woman, there's no well. I'm standing in the lake of answers. You ask me something, I can blah, blah about it for hours, even if I know nothing about it. You see, that's something that I learned from my mother. Yes, indeed. But you see, the interesting part is women speak to get to the answer. Men don't speak until they have an answer. Maybe it's not that I'm not a good listener. Maybe it's just that I don't give him an opportunity to say anything. So my new mantra is ask just one question and wait, wait, wait for the answer. Next time you hear, "Are you listening?" think, did I ask a question and then keep talking? Ask just one question and wait, wait, wait for the answer. Or, did I offer advice instead of sympathy? Remember, my poor sweetheart, I'm so sorry. What can I do to make it better? In the end, it's as simple as listening is complicated when it comes to the other gender. And my husband really does think he married Ms. Wright, Ms. Lindy Wright. He just did not realize that my middle name is always Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lindy. That was amazing. Yes, I can totally relate. Now with that, let's take a 3 minutes break so that our evaluators can prepare for the evaluation. In the meantime, feel free to message Lindy any feedback you have. 3 minutes break. So while we're taking 3 minutes break, let's introduce our guests. We have plenty of guests today. Tiger, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Tiger. I belong to 6 different Toastmaster clubs, 3 in the United States and 3 international. I was invited here by Linda, and I am very glad I came because I'm passionate about good speaking. We've got a good lesson and we got a good example, so thank you.
Thank you so much. Mary Lee, tell us about yourself.
Oh, I'm from the Vancouver area and I enjoy visiting Toastmaster clubs, and exciting to see the very informative workshop and evaluations and hybrid meeting. Great.
Thank you. Welcome. Now let me call upon Petra. Petra, what brings you to Professionally Speaking?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. It's not what, yeah, it's also what brought me to the meeting. And who brought me to the meeting is Lindy. She's been introducing me to this club and some other wonderful clubs. And actually, I attended this meeting with 2 purposes. One is to learn about effective evaluation. And second, which seemed to be my primary purpose, is to learn how to craft and deliver better in my presentation. I'm joining from Thailand, and actually it's now Friday morning.
Thank you, and you are in the right place. Anand, we would like to hear from you. Tell us about yourself. We'll get back to Anand. Let me call upon Ellie. Tell us about yourself.
Hello, everybody. You caught me just before I was getting ready to go to bed. I had to rush and put on a top. I was like, uh-oh, she calls on me. This is absolutely lovely. I am enjoying this so much. Thank you so much for the presentations. I mean, I was blown away by that. The information is great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm happy that I called on you before you go to bed. And I hope you can stay for some more time.
No, I will stay on and listen. This is very informative.
Thank you. Now with that, now I see Anand has unmuted. Anand, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I am Anand from Muscat, Oman. I'm Toastmaster for last 6 years. I'm a DTM. And when I saw on Facebook something about evaluation, I love doing evaluations. I have participated in local contests also. And today I learned many more criteria for evaluation, which definitely helped me.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for joining from Sultanate of Oman. I myself, I have grown up there, so definitely I would like to.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great.
So with that, our 3 minutes break has finally ended. So let me call upon our 3 brave evaluators. Our first evaluator is going to do the visual. And for that, we have Michael Maddox. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and Toastmasters and guests. I always enjoy watching Lindy because she is so great with her visual presentation. She's so great with her speech. And then also, I just got this instruction sheet as what to do on the visual evaluation. So I'm going to go down that list. First off, professional attire and very comfortable for the audience too. She presented right away well. The other thing I liked is she came at us with a smile and then got stern right at the very beginning. So we saw that there was going to be a conflict in the speech, and that was presented in the first few seconds of the speech, the smile and then the sternness. Gestures. Lindy is always excellent with her gestures, her hands, her body being used as a gesture, even within the small box. And then she would lean in to her husband to speak something romantic, or him speaking something romantic and saying, please pass the potatoes. So I loved her body movement and her gestures. She's always excellent with that. The same thing with facial expressions, very animated. Lindy's speech is full of energy, passion, personal experience, and that comes through in her facial expressions very much. She's a master at using those. The suggestions I might have would be, you know, it's tough. I'm a fast speaking guy. You were a bit fast in the last part of your speech. You had more pauses in the first half of the speech. So when it came to those extremely important words that you were giving to men, that was the secret to having happiness with all your spouses, and you said, memorize those words. I missed those words. I don't know what those words were, those secret words of happiness in marriage. I missed them. I needed the slowness. I needed the pause. I needed the memorize these words, men. Ready, men? Memorize these words. Boom. So that was the suggestion I have. The last half of the speech tended to speed up. It impacted me significantly. I thought it was a very personal message. I'm a married guy too. Lots of us are. Many of the things you spoke about are very common. We can really relate to it. You delivered it with the passion and energy that you always do, and also with your own personal experiences. And so I thought it was a wonderful speech, Lindy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let me call upon our vocal evaluator, Terry.
All right. Thank you so much. Very enjoyable speech. I had a great time. This is the first time I have turned away from the camera and just listened. So that was a great experience. I want to start with thanking you, Lindy. That was a fun speech. It was enjoyable. It made me laugh. I could relate to some of the things. Your volume, I thought, was really wonderful. I could always hear you clearly without any trouble. And I liked that you varied it and you used it to make some points. For example, please pass the mashed potatoes. It got the point across without having to add any more words to it because you used that volume there. The pitch was also used well. You dropped, let's see, I was trying to rewrite this a little bit. Okay, pitch, for an example on that one, you dropped with the last thing you dropped the pitch with the last thing we want is a solution, and you lowered your voice a little bit. Your tone was rich. You had a nice, rich tone, but you also varied that depending on what you were sharing. For example, the romantic, thoughtful husband that was very sweet, too sweet. Like I got the point. That just wasn't realistic. I mean, really. So that came across through there really nicely, even a little bit of sarcastic tone with the I'm so sorry. The voice quality was great. Always a nice variety to it. It was easy to listen to you and really take in the content of what you were speaking about. I liked the articulation with action-focused listening. That was a great way to say that. Mysterious thing between it can, one of the phrases you used was, it can blah, blah, blah about it, or I can blah, blah, blah about it, which isn't a way to articulate a particular thing, but it worked perfectly. I got the point. You didn't even have to use English language. It still came across very well. Word usage, you did a very nice job of that. The interruption, and then you used a pause in there. So the pauses helped with that word usage to get that point across. One of the comments you made a phrase, you used a phrase of, I don't always necessarily stop and listen. I think one thing that could happen there is to restructure that sentence a little bit. One suggestion I had was you could say, you could restructure it into, let's see how I had that. There are times I could stop and listen, or something along those lines. So the words aren't kind of going back and forth with it. Let's see, we had also, the rate was great, I thought. I did say that sped up a little bit, but I think that added some energy to the content of what you were sharing. I thought the rate was easy to follow for me and had some excitement and enthusiasm in it when you sped it up a little bit, or when you were making a point and you slowed it down and you dropped your voice. You kind of used those different aspects of the pitch and the tone and the rate of speed. So you kind of use those all together in a way that made the point just with those things. So all in all, I really enjoyed the speech. I thought you really came across with the content you were trying to express, and you use the vocal content in there, the different aspects of using your vocal variety and different things with it that were used very well. And I enjoyed the speech. The one thing that you could change is maybe restructure a couple of sentences and just be careful how they come across. So thank you so much. It was a great time.
Thank you so much, Terry. Now let me call upon Linda to give us the content evaluation.
Thank you, Lindy. This is a wonderful speech. I really enjoyed it. And now I'm going to try to evaluate in terms of content. First, you started the speech with an engaging question. You asked us, are you listening? This question is it's relatable to all of us. It calls our attention, and it's really a good start. And then you give example for us, about mashing potato, and then you give us different examples, and you also mentioned about that men are action-oriented. They look for action-oriented solution, while women look for sympathy. And then you give us several examples about vacation and others. I really like the citation of Edison Armstrong. It's really good. And I really enjoy the metaphor of women's are like men are like well, women are like naked. And you also give us solution about advice for women is that we can ask the question just once and then wait for the answer. And for men, instead of giving advice to women, they can just provide their sympathy. And you have a very good close. That's very well. So the speech is structured very well, and the transition is very smooth. We even don't notice it. The supporting materials are also very good. If I'm going to give you some advice, I would like to say that you did it very well in inviting actions from the audience. Something I would like to say is that a foundation phrase. Maybe you can have some, a foundation phrase that a message that we can have and we can remember for a long time. That will be, much more powerful for this speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now let me call upon our presenters to give feedback to our 3 evaluators.
Just unmuting us, we'll be seated at our tables here. But Karen, would you start with mics? How many mics?
Michael, thank you very much for the visual evaluation. I liked that you highlighted both things done well and then gave specific recommendations related to the visual. You covered each of the areas, I think, very well. And I think your comment around pausing was very helpful as well, because I agree that the second part of the speech, when there wasn't a pause, it went quite quickly. You talked about the gestures and Lindy being so powerful with her gestures and her variety. And I agree with that. Lindy is always very good at that. And I would make 2 comments that you might consider when evaluating visual, and that is if your gestures are matched, but also if they are natural, we can identify with them really well. Lindy has very exaggerated gestures to the point where it's almost sometimes like acting versus speaking. And if she would pause and take those in, I think it would be even more powerful. So taking what you said, maybe even one step further and say, make the gesture to match what you're saying a little bit more naturally, not quite as exaggerated, and then add a pause in. And then potentially thinking about culturally, is the role of the woman and the man the same across cultures? And would that be something to address? But the way you gave the evaluation and incorporating all of those things with the positive and then giving feedback on the visual was very powerful and very well done. It was a great evaluation. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. I'll make some comments about Terry Barrett's vocal evaluation. That was really an excellent job, Terry. I thought you hit on a lot of really good points on the vocal. Now, one thing I will say, I'm glad Michael's still on the screen, because Michael, you drifted over into Terry's territory. You started talking about the speed at which Lindy spoke. That's not visual. Speed and pauses. So this is one of the challenges for us when we do these focused evaluations, is to stay in our lane, to stay with the type of evaluation you're supposed to be doing. All right, so having said that, Terry, great job. You mentioned the volume and her variation, and you had specifics there. You mentioned the variation in pitch, and you gave specifics there where she had varied the pitch, her tone. First, you almost started out being a little vague, so your tone was rich, but then you got in there and said what was good in her pitch, the romantic voice, the sarcastic tone. So you got all of that. You told her you found her voice easy to listen to when we're talking about voice quality. You got to articulation, and that's great. Lindy's articulation is very good. She speaks, you could read her lips easily. She speaks very clearly. I don't know if that's her acting training or her natural way of speaking, but she certainly does articulate well. But then you were still talking about articulation, but you drifted into word usage, actually. So I have put action-focused listening. That's a great phrase. That's in word usage. I would have put I can blah, blah, blah. That was all kind of in the word usage area. Wonderful. Then you talk about pauses, and that's where you get into the rate, the speed. And you did disagree with Michael, and that's perfectly fine. If her rate of speaking was good for you, good for you. I happen to agree with Michael that I think at times, especially towards the end, she might slow down just a tad. Where you gave some really pointed suggestions was about restructuring some phrases, some sentences. And I think you were onto something there. Had you been able to read your notes, or, because she was talking fast, take the notes so that you could say what she actually said and then rephrase it. But that's really hard to do on the fly. But you have pointed it out as something she may want to look at to rephrase for greater clarity and better understanding. But boy, Terry, great job. I really enjoyed your evaluation. And now Sandra can talk about the content.
Thank you, Elena. And thank you, Linda, for your content evaluation of Lindy's speech. You did an exceptional job. I really felt that you touched on all of the main areas. I loved how you addressed the organization of the speech. You did speak to the opening, how engaging it was, the dialogue, the interaction, and all throughout the body, and the series of examples. And as well as defining how women solve problems and how men do, or what women want and what men want. The action versus the sympathy. And you pointed out especially the well versus the lake. That was very a memorable point in the body of the speech. So thank you for pointing those illustrations out that made it memorable. What I really felt that you did very well was pointing out perhaps a foundational phrase. You and I were exactly in the same place on that, where I felt that it could have been highlighted more, perhaps, would be in the closing, if you would just address perhaps the closing of the speech. Because when we came to the end of the closing, I heard a number of different key phrases, and I was wondering exactly what was the most memorable point we were supposed to take away. That's where your suggestion of a foundational phrase would have been extremely helpful to me being in the audience. With that last word, or the repeatable phrase within the closing. It was a great summation, but we just needed to hear that. I may have missed it, so forgive me if I did, Linda. I don't know if you mentioned citing of sources. Lindy did mention a website, understandingmen.com. So she did cite a source, which I'd like to point out in that as well. You may have addressed it generally, But when we take a look at the appropriateness to an audience, always a speech based on relationships will hit most of us in some way. So it's a very engaging topic for a broad base of audiences. I'm sure that Lindy will find ways to use this in many situations in the future. But overall, Linda, you did an outstanding job. You hit all the main components of the content evaluation. So kudos to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now with that, I want to ask, do you have any questions, comments, feedback to the presenters?
Hi, I'm Anand here.
Go for it.
During evaluation, biggest challenge is to note down everything. Like we have 4 criterias, like visual, vocal, content. Within that 7 minutes, if I note down on visual, I miss on content. So how do I balance it? Because I find it very challenging to note down everything. Any suggestion on that?
I'm sorry, I don't think our speaker here is really conveying Anand's question very well. Can someone?
So what I understood, Anand, did I understood you correctly to say now that you've got so many specifics of so many things, how do you decide what to put in an evaluation? Is that what you're asking?
No. How to note down? Like I am in a contest for evaluation, I'm listening to a speech, but I'm unable to note everything. I may miss some important point because there are 30 to 40 parameters to note down under different criteria. It's difficult to note down everything.
If he's focused on visual, how's he going to pick up the vocal? Or if he's looking at content, how's he going to notice whatever gestures are being made?
Right.
Well, if you are evaluating, if you are the only evaluator for someone, then you're looking at the speech more holistically. You're looking at the whole package. So what you're looking for, what stands out. Maybe their visual presentation is fine or average, but they need you need to give them feedback on the vocal aspect or the content. You, as an evaluator, if you're evaluating the whole speech, you have to, you're in a position where you need to decide what is the most important improvement you can offer to the speaker, and also what was the thing about it that you liked the most.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tiger has a question.
Yes, I have a question for Lindy. You're doing speeches, you're getting evaluations from a lot of people. How do you determine what recommendations you implement and what recommendations you just let flow down the river?
That's a good question.
That's a complicated question in a way, but let me do my best to answer it. My friend Kyle, who's also performed on the world stage, tells me that when he was preparing and visiting many, many clubs, he would just watch for commonalities. What feedback did he receive over and over? What was kind of a one-off? And he did it that way, kind of more of a numerical way. I have a thinner skin and was not my style to be able to do that many club visits. So my best way has been over time to assess who gives me the most helpful feedback and to listen most closely to them. I know, like Darren says, well, anyone, if you're getting advice from someone, have they been where you're wanting to go? But two more things. One is that I usually try something most of the time. I'll try it because sometimes something sounds like it won't work, and then that's exactly what you do need to do, because we have to get outside of our comfort zone in order to grow. And then the other side of it, though, of course, is if you take everybody's advice, there's a point of diminishing returns and the speech starts to get worse instead of better. So it takes having someone trusted to come back to check on how your development is going. Does that help at all, Tiger? It's not very straightforward.
Yes, it does. I'm working on a speech right now, and I've gotten so much advice that I've lost myself, and I had to back up and get back to doing my speech as opposed to trying to implement all these different things. I'm just wondering, because you've obviously been successful, is how do you do that? That's important.
Yeah, and so I guess in the end, I would say if you have one person who's trusted to you, check with them, because I can never see myself the same way someone else can. So I do rely on some external feedback. Thanks.
Thank you. That's good advice.
Thank you so much. Now with that, let me call upon our club president, who is going to ask for your experience and feedback. So please turn on your video and let's hear from you.
Thank you so much. Dwight, how was your experience today, Dwight? It's great to have you here. I think Dwight, I caught him by surprise.
Hi, I'm Dwight. And your question is?
How was your experience today?
Well, you guys get into it. I enjoyed each person's idiosyncratic way of just being themselves. And the differences and the contrasts all add up to, for me, a spectator from the outside world. It might be called roast masters. That starts with an R. I'm not here to roast anybody. I'm just here to express and answer the question to the best of my ability, which I don't think I have. So I'm going to, before I ramble too far, shut up.
Thank you so much, Dwight. Thank you for sharing. Ellie, how was your experience, Ellie?
Well, as I said in my first time, I was headed to bed, and was dressed for bed and had to jump up and grab clothes. But it was such a good experience. I have stayed woke the entire time. So it's like I'm like almost an hour beyond my bedtime.
Glad we called upon you.
It was a great experience. Thank you so much. I learned so much. And I have a big presentation coming up next month. I'm going to immediately begin to incorporate the suggestions and the tips that I learned tonight.
Thank you so much, Ellie. Amar, how was your experience, Amar?
Like the other speakers, this was quite a good exercise. I enjoyed the educationals, the three different kind of, in a nutshell, explanations of what the evaluation form, that handout that was provided. It provided really good structure and explanation that made me think. And then the test speaker was a great example of seeing it put into work. So I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amar. Great. Glad you could join us. Mary Lee, how was your experience?
I really enjoyed it. It was very informative, very creative, well organized. I appreciated all the handouts. Very good experience, so I'm glad I attended. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Walker, how was it for you?
Are we muted over there? Can they hear me?
They can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you.
All right. Well, I came to try to, this guy's all choked up. Excuse me. I came to experience a hybrid experience, but I really enjoyed the meeting overall in ways I wasn't really anticipating. To see this broken down this way was a great experience for me as a long-term Toastmaster to see just how a professional group does the broken up the evaluations in 3 parts. It's great, great experience.
Thank you, Walker. Glad you could join us. Petra, how was your experience, Petra?
Abhijit, thank you so much. I believe this is the second time I saw you. I'm feeling like I'm just a baby sister trying to learn from big sisters like all of you. I can take in so much and take home so much. While I was watching everybody, I was shaking and feeling nervous for each evaluator not to step outside of their respective area for evaluation. And I feel that it's so difficult. If one day I become a member of this club and I'm assigned to comment on content, I would want to be sure I don't step outside to comment on vocal or body language. So I learned so much from all the great examples, and thank you, Lindy, for inviting me to this workshop. Thank you, everybody.
Petra, don't worry. Elena has her whip ready. If you step into someone's area, she will be ready. Okay. Tiger, how was your experience?
Well, I've always analyzed clubs on three things. Are they welcoming? Are they educational? And is the meeting fun? I was welcomed within 10 seconds by your Toastmaster in the chat. This was the most educational meeting I've been to since I can remember. And your speaker, well, Lindy, we all know she's hilarious. She's very funny. So you guys hit a home run. You hit 3 home runs. So I am very, very glad I came.
Great, you could join us. Anand, how was your experience, Anand?
Yeah, good evening. First of all, it's early morning, but you kept me awake with such a good session. And I thank you, Lindy, for such a humorous speech. It was sprinkled with humor and emotion, a lot of learning for all the Toastmasters. I wish my wife was also listening to this speech. It could have helped me. And it's a very good idea to have evaluations separately for visual, vocal, so you can focus on those things. And your handout is very impressive. So it will definitely be useful for me. I enjoyed every moment of it. Thank you.
Perfect, perfect. And anyone who wants to see this speech again, come on 29th, the final. Lindy is on the finals. It's on 29th. Before we close out, we have 2 announcements. Emmy, let me call upon you to do an announcement for our in-person meeting for the next
Abhijit, can
month.
We have one more guest with us tonight.
Yes.
Mary is here with us in the room.
Hello.
How was your experience?
It was fantastic. I'm so glad I came. Karen told me that it's going to be about evaluations, and I have a challenge with coming up with a suggestion for making their speech better. And I took a lot of notes tonight. So thank you. It was great.
Great. Great you could join us. See you soon again next month also. Emmy, it's all you.
Thank you, Abhijit. We're planning a potluck in our in-person space where we saw all of our presenters were there together. So what we'd like to do is on November 17th, we want to hold a potluck there to get as many people in there to experience our space. I know a lot of us live a long ways away. I personally live about an hour and a half away, but I think I'll probably come to that. It sounds exciting to me. So what we'd like to do is invite all of our members and anybody else who would like to come into that space, and we'll have a potluck there. But we need to know how many people will be able to join us. If you're a member, please let us know by November 3rd if you think you'd be able to do that. So that's the plan. And I think if we can get enough of us there, we're going to have a great time. So please let me know.
Thank you so much, Emmy. Thank you. Both members as well as guests are welcome to join us on November 17th. Before we end, we have one more announcement of our special event coming up in December. Lindy, you want to give a brief overview about it?
Yes, we are going to be doing the greatest show on Zoom again. We had such a good time last year. It will be full of celebrity players who play games, world champions like Nite Yair Levy, Alexandre Matt, Luisa Montalvo, on goes the list. And you will have a chance to play too. These are Toastmaster games. You know exactly what to do. We will also have a live auction woven in because we're fundraising to help us support us to help with our ongoing costs like space rentals, particularly, and Zoom accounts, those things. So come, it will be fast-paced, good fun, December 1st. And the best way to stay in touch with how to sign up is to sign up for our newsletter. It comes out once a month. It doesn't clutter your inbox, and you'll always find out about special events like this one that are full of value. So in the chat is the link to join our newsletter. Please do sign up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lindy. Our next meeting is going to be on November 3rd. See you all on November 3rd. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a good night and a good morning.
Thank you. So many of you have stayed up very late where you are, Toronto, other places. Thank you.